Good morning, and welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist of Chelmsford. We're a covenantal community gathered for worship, mutual care, and in service to the common good. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to anyone visiting us for the first time. We're so glad that you joined us today. You can learn more about our congregation and our faith by visiting our website, uuchelmsford.org, or you can email dre@uuchelmsford.org for more information. I'm Reverend Ellen Spiro. I'm leading the service today with Steve Zaki, our Director of Music, Dolores Heredia Wood, our Director of Lifespan Faith Formation. Susan Woodmancy will be leading our chalice lighting and our covenant. Diana Cohane is running our worship tech this morning, and Dave Caffeine is our online chat host. If you wish to join in the online chat, you need to join our worship service via the YouTube link option on our website and be logged into your Google account. Due to the severity of the COVID numbers, the COVID task force has extended worship attendance to online only through February 20th. We are hopeful to return to multi-platform worship on the February 27th, but we will see what the numbers allow. We will have an online social hour after the service, and it's hosted today by Edith Murphy. We will provide a slide with a Zoom link at the end of the service if you wish to join. But now I invite us to center ourselves for worship wherever we may be as Steve plays for us.
Morning. I'm Susan Woodmansey, and this month we're talking about living with intention. I'll start with a couple quotes. Begin with the end in mind. Advice from Stephen Covey. Start as you mean to go on. Advice from Stephen Van Bellingham. It's common to make resolutions at the start of the calendar year. I intend to be healthier. I intend to read more books. I intend to be a better friend. I intend to do meaningful work. I intend to be a more patient parent. I think the intention is the easy part. It's the living part that's hard, living with intention, living healthier, changing my habits, making and nurturing connections, considering the impact of my work, practicing empathy, gentleness, and patience. I'm a project manager at heart, which means I love to make plans. It's much easier for me to follow the plan when it's been set forth ahead of time. I know by experience that in the moment, I may not feel like waking up 30 minutes earlier to practice yoga and make a salad for lunch. When I feel tired at the end of the day, it's easier to surf social media than reach out to a friend or a family member for real mutual connection. But by making a plan, I've set out the path to follow. When I tell someone about my plan, they can remind me why I chose this path. We might even choose to travel it together. I light the chalice today to shine a light on our living, for the courage to meet our intention with action, for this community that calls us to live by our principles. Please join me in our First Parish covenant. We, the members of First Parish of Chelmsford, covenant together to sustain and strengthen our beloved community by honoring and celebrating the spirit of life, nurturing all souls in our search for truth and the sacred, caring and being present to one another in our joys and sorrows, bearing witness through service to justice and peace, and being good stewards of our congregation, our heritage, our Unitarian Universalist principles, and our earth.
Nosotros, los miembros de la primera parroquia de Chelmsford, convenimos juntos a sostener y fortalecer nuestra amada comunidad, honorando y celebrando el espíritu de la vida, nutriendo todas almas en búsqueda de la verdad y lo sagrado. Cuidar y estar presentes al uno y el otro en nuestras alegrías y tristezas. Dar testimonio mediante servicio a la justicia y la paz. Y ser buenos cuidadores de nuestra congregación, nuestra herencia, nuestro principio unitario universalista y nuestra tierra.
We might think of the offertory as the time to think about money, but actually it's the time to reflect on gratitude, as asking for the offertory is a way of expressing gratitude for the time and talent and treasure that sustains this community and keeps us going. So as we reflect on gratitude this morning, I would like us to especially reflect, or I will especially reflect, on the gratitude I have for Marion Murphy, Edith Murphy, Elliot Mayer, Terry Robalski, and Ted Markey, who have been hosting our online social hours for going on almost, 2 years. So thank you to them. We will now gratefully consider this morning's offering of time and talent and treasure that keeps our faith alive.
Hi, I'm Dolores, the Faith Formation Director here at First Parish UU of Chelmsford. For these next couple of weeks during the For All Ages, we will be reflecting on what it means to be in a more intentional relationship with creation by exploring the mysteries and connections of creation stories that are a part of many faiths. Weaved within these is the wisdom of a truly loving and challenging relationship with creation as part of our faith. In the Old Testament, Genesis speaks about the creation. The first day, God creates light. The second day, he creates the sky. And on the third day, he creates land and sea and every kind of plant. On the fourth day, God creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. On the fifth day, God creates the sea and the sky. And on the sixth day, God creates animals and people. And on the seventh day, God rested. Humanists tend to be more scientifically minded and point out the fact that the sequence of these days may not be in sync with scientific discoveries. Shouldn't the sun and moon and stars be at least on the second day instead of the fourth? Though they recognize the fact that we are all interconnected. And as Unitarian Universalists, we share these facts about our relationship with creation. Recognition of the interconnectedness of all life, value for the natural world, and we value the concept that the force that gives light is shared among living things. The intentional relationship of love of the divine with creation can be heard in this story from the indigenous peoples from around Australia and New Zealand. It is called Sun Mother Walks the Earth. There was a time when everything was still. All the earth spirits were asleep, or almost all. The great Sun Mother was awake, and the warm ray of light spread out towards the sleeping earth. "Ah," said the Sun Mother, "I have work to do. I must go to the earth and awaken the sleeping spirits and give them forms." The Sun Mother glided down to earth, which was bare. She began to walk, and in all directions and everywhere she walked, plants began to grow. After returning to the field where she had begun her work, the Sun Mother, well pleased with herself, rested. Though not before long, the Sun Mother went forth again. This time, she ventured into the dark caves of the mountain sides. Bright light that radiated from her awoke the spirits, and when she left the cave, all kinds of insects flew out into the sunlight. The Sun Mother sat down to rest again and watched the glorious sight of her insects mingling with the flowers. She did not rest for long before going up forth again. The Sun Mother ventured into a deep cave. Spreading her light around her, her heat melted the ice, and the rivers and the streams of the world were created. Then she created the fish and small snakes, lizards and frogs. Next, she awoke the spirits of the birds and the animals, and they burst into sunshine in a glorious array of colors. Seeing this, the Sun Mother was pleased with her work. She called all her creatures to her and instructed them to enjoy the wealth of the earth and to live peacefully with one another. Then she rose again to the sky and became the sun. The living creatures watched in awe as the Sun Mother went across the sky towards the west. However, when she finally sunk beneath the horizon, they were panic-stricken, thinking she had deserted them. All night they stood frozen in their places, thinking that the end of time had come. Finally, after what seemed to them a lifetime, the Sun Mother peeked above the horizon in the east. The mother's creations were so relieved they danced for joy. Soon they learned to expect her coming and going, and were no longer afraid. At first, all of creation did live together peacefully, but eventually they wanted more gifts, or the gifts that others had. They began to argue. The Sun Mother came down from her home in the sky to mediate their bickering. She gave each creature the choice to change its form to whatever it chose. However, she was puzzled with the end results. The rats she had made had changed into bats. There were giant lizards and fish with blue tongues and feet. However, the oddest to her was, of all the new animals, it had a bill like a duck, teeth for chewing, a tail like a beaver, and the ability to lay eggs. Welcome, platypus. The Sun Mother looked down upon the earth and decided to create new creatures. She gave birth to 2 children, a god and a goddess. The god was the morning star, and the goddess was the moon. The two children were born from them, and these, her grandchildren, she sent to live on the earth. They became our ancestors. The Sun Mother was satisfied. These would be the wisest of creatures, for she had imparted in them a piece of her mind, and they would be able to love all of creation as she does. For no matter what happens on earth, the sun's warm rays always shine on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores and Susan. I have 2 ancient readings to share, continuing around the creation stories. The first is from the Hindu tradition, the creation hymn from the oldest of their scriptures, the Rig Veda. It's hymn 10, 129, verses 1 through 6, as translated by Ralph T.H. Griffith. Then there was not non-existent, nor existent. There was no realm of air, no sky beyond it. What covered in and where? And what gave shelter? Was water there, unfathomed depth of water? Death was not then, nor was there aught immortal. No sign was there, the days and nights divider. That one thing, breathless, breathed by its own nature. Apart from it was nothing whatsoever. Darkness there was, at first concealed in darkness. This all was indiscriminated chaos. All that existed then was void and formless. By the great power of warmth was born that unit. Thereafter rose desire in the beginning, desire, the primal seed and germ of spirit. There were begetters, there were mighty forces, free action here and energy up yonder. Who verily knows, and who can declare it, once it was born, and whence comes this creation? The second reading is from the book of Job, chapter 38, from verses 1 through 7 in the New Revised Standard Version. Then the Holy One answered Job out of the whirlwind, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk, or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy?" Our modern reading is from The Luminous Web by Barbara Brown Taylor. In Sunday school, I learned to think of God as a very old, white-bearded man on a throne who stood above creation and occasionally stirred it with a stick. When I am dreaming quantum dreams, what I see is an infinite web of relationship flung across the vastness of space like a luminous net. It's made of energy, not thread. As I look, I can see light moving through it as a pulse moves through veins. What I see out there is no different from what I feel inside. There is a living hum that might be coming from my neurons, but might just as well be coming from the furnace of the stars. When I look up, there is a small commotion in my bones, as the ashes of dead stars that house my marrow rise up like metal filings toward the magnet of their living kin. Where do we come from? How did this amazing, marvelous earth come into being? For that matter, the whole universe beyond it, beyond our comprehension. What is the source of life, of creation? Why do we live and why do we die? What is our place in the order of things? Human beings have asked and strived to answer these questions ever since we had consciousness and the imagination to do so. Every culture of every generation, every religious and spiritual tradition have their creation stories and myths shaped by their experiences of the world. We come from mud, from corn, from seed, from the waters, from a cosmic egg, from a sun mother, from a union of sky and earth, from the word and the breath and the imagination of the divine, from out of nothing, out of chaos, out of a big bang of energy. And here we are, this human species living on this tiny planet in a small solar system, in a galaxy in the middle of an infinite universe. You do not have to believe in a God or a supernatural force to be in awe. And that we are aware, that we can study and ask questions and wonder about it all. The Hindu priests who wrote the Rig Veda thousands of years ago named this truth. Who verily knows and who can declare it, whence it was born and whence comes this creation? Something happened that brought life into being, and we will never fully know what. So the best and most holy response is wonder. One of the things I love about our Unitarian Universalist faith is our commitment to this life and this world, and therefore, by extension, this universe. We recognize them as gifts, freely given, despite sorrows and struggles and sufferings, and despite our own mortality and the mortality of those we love. This earth and our lives upon it are worth our commitment to live intentionally and with care. I know when I say this, I'm preaching to the choir, whom I miss tremendously sitting over here, by the way, because we're all aware of the consequences of climate change, or as my husband Josh reminds me, climate disruption. Extended droughts, wildfires, disappearing seas and rising ocean temperatures, melting glaciers and polar ice caps, wacky out-of-season weather patterns, once-in-a-century storms and floods that happen once every decade or even more frequently. We human beings are an invasive species of sorts, destroying landscapes, consuming the Earth's resources, and taking other species to extinction, polluting the skies and the waters beyond repair. It's hard not to be terrified for the future of the planet and all humanity. Another thing I love about being Unitarian Universalist is that I can hold faith and science together. I can hold the wisdom of the mind and the wisdom of the soul They need not be mutually exclusive. In fact, at their best, they complement one another. Religion holds science accountable to ethics and to meaning, while science holds religion accountable to truth and learning. They keep each other from fossilizing and fundamentalism. I learn from science. I learn from what can be measured and theorized and studied and tested. I also learn from faith, from the sacred, through the ancient stories and songs, poetry and rituals of ancestors who understood instinctually things we have long forgotten or chosen to ignore in the name of progress. In a combination of optimism and arrogance, I think, human beings have come to believe and act as though we are at the pinnacle of creation, forgetting that we are part of that luminous web, not above it. We don't control it. Its depth and breadth, its age and its expanse are beyond what our small brains can comprehend. In his PBS show, Cosmos, Neil deGrasse Tyson stood on the timeline of the Earth's history. We're barely a blink of an eye. And as for the rest of the universe, we don't even rate that. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth, when the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy? The answer is we were not there. Every ancient story and song of creation reminds us that for all the answers we seek and find, we will never truly comprehend the depth and breadth of this sacred mystery. I've been thinking about humanity's relationship with the creation as we deal with this pandemic. Pandemics ripped its way through the population, so we shut down. Then we learned and we adapted, some of us anyway. We learned to cover our mouths and noses, to wear masks, to keep a distance, and curtail our social contacts. Science comes through with a vaccine. We take a deep breath, remove our masks. Then it's the virus's turn to adapt. First one variant and then another. We adapt again, boosters, testing, put the masks back on, back and forth, ebb and flow. It's a small-scale demonstration of how the creation works, from the infinitesimal to the cosmic. At every level, there is a will toward survival, toward life. And so life in this luminous web of a planet adapts and evolves to that end. In this, I believe, lies both a warning and our hope as a species. If we continue to destroy the creation around us, if we become an invasive species beyond what the earth can tolerate, how will the earth and creation respond? I cannot help but wonder if the current pandemic is a cautionary tale. This is not just a philosophical question. People have died because of this virus. People who took COVID seriously and were vaccinated have died. People I know and love and people you know and love have died. A virus doesn't discriminate. It lives by invading its hosts, replicating itself, and moving on. The research shows, though, that the chances of contracting a severe case decrease when we take the precautions of vaccination and mask wearing. People who don't believe this and refuse to get vaccinated are at a significantly higher risk for more severe cases and the resulting consequences. This is the danger of not learning, not adapting, of not taking nature seriously, of believing you are above or exempt from the web of life. Unfortunately, though, it impacts everyone, especially those who are vulnerable because of age or because of health issues, and not just those who refuse vaccinations and mask wearing, who believe they are above the virus. This is true for climate change and disruption as well. Those who don't believe it and work strenuously against taking it seriously are putting us all at risk. especially those in the poorer and more vulnerable parts of the world. Some days I can't decide if our species is stupid or brilliant. We can be stupid in our stubborn refusal to change and be brilliant in our ability to adapt. I guess we're both. And because there are about 7 billion of us, we're not going to get everyone on the same page anytime soon. Just think how long it takes us for a congregation of people who agree on many things to make decisions. And yet, I do have hope because the creation is such a big mystery, and we are such an infinitesimal part of it. Our former intern minister, Jennifer Johnson, observed that human beings cannot live without consuming and thus harming other life. That applies to all things in the creation at some level. All life requires life to support it. The spiritual and ethical practice comes in learning to consume within sustainable means. I cannot control what the other 7 billion people are doing. I can only choose the practices and values I believe help me contribute to living more intentionally within the creation and within my means. That is true for us as a congregation, as a faith, as neighbors with other communities of faith and learning who hold the creation with awe, with respect, and with care. The creation will sustain us only if we do the same. Is it enough? I don't know. But I came across this January 20th essay in the New York Times by Amanda Gorman about reading her poem at President Biden's inauguration last year, just 2 weeks after the insurrection at the Capitol. It was about her deep fear about the risks she was taking in getting up and reading her poem. She writes, "On that January 20th, what I found waiting beyond my fear was every person who searched beyond their own fears to find space for hope in their lives, who welcomed the impact of a poem into protests, hospitals, classrooms, conversations, living rooms, offices, art, and all manner of moments. I may have worked on the words, but it was other people who put those words to work. What we've seen isn't just the power of the poem, it's the power of the people. Yet while the inauguration might have seemed like a ray of light, this past year for many has felt like a return to the old gloom. Our nation is still haunted by disease, inequality, and environmental crises. But though our fears may be the same, we are not. If nothing else, this must be known. Even as we've grieved, we've grown. Even fatigued, we have found that this hill we climb is one we must mount together. We are battered but bolder, worn but wiser. I'm not telling you not to be tired or afraid. If anything, the very fact that we're weary means we are by definition changed. We are brave enough to listen to and learn from our fear. This time will be different because this time will be different. We already are. And yes, I'm still terrified every day. Yet fear can be love, trying its best in the dark. So do not fear your fear. Own it. Free it. This isn't a liberation that I or anyone can give you. It's a power you must look for, learn, love, lead, and locate for yourself." Why? She asks. The truth is, hope isn't a promise we give. It's a promise we live. Tell it like this, and we, like our words, will not rest, and the rest is history. May it be so. As part of our covenant, we walk together to be present to one another in our joys and sorrows and gratitudes as well. And I have several to offer this morning. I'll start with our sorrows. Colleen Leary asks us to hold in our thoughts and prayers her mother and the other Elder 13 clients at the Woburn Rehab, all who have COVID, and the staff who are caring for them. Many of these staff have been sick too and have children under vaccination age. Sheila Carmen's only sibling, an older brother, passed away this week. He was in a nursing home with Parkinson's when he contracted COVID. He died peacefully, surrounded by his children, but Sheila, unfortunately, was not able to get there in time. Kathy Guerra asks us to include her mother in our thoughts and prayers as she passed away on January 8th. A joy, Tiffany Fisher would like to share that her mother, Debbie Oakley, has completed her radiation and the last of her breast cancer treatments. She began this journey in March 2021 with the initial diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer, and she is now cancer-free. And a gratitude. Lynn Cole, a member of our congregation who serves as a chaplain at the hospitals in Lowell General, and Saints Memorial, offers many thank yous to our congregation for the awesome thank you notes and the prayer shawls that we gave to the staff at the hospitals. She says, "You all validated the staff and their feelings spot on. They are so appreciative of your wonderful words of encouragement." And now I invite us to pause for a moment, to open our hearts and minds, our bodies and souls to our source of being. Wherever we encounter it, however we name this source, from within, among, and beyond us. Spirit of life and love, breath of the universe, we hold this morning the joys and sorrows and gratitudes shared, the loss of family, the worry for others, healing and support and gratitude. And in these, we hear the ways that we are connected to those we love and to those we do not know, whose lives we still touch. May we be mindful of the life and the earth that we have been given. And walk a path of gratitude and hope, honesty and courage. Amen and blessed be.
Praise
For our benediction, I just want to repeat these words by Amanda Gorman. And yes, I am still terrified every day, yet fear can be love, trying its best in the dark. So do not fear your fear. Own it. Free it. This isn't a liberation that I or anyone can give you. It's a power you must look for, learn, love, lead, and locate for yourself. Why? The truth is, hope isn't a promise we give, it's a promise we live. Tell it like this, and we, like our words, will not rest. Take that hope as a promise to live.